in your relationship you don't have what you would like to have in your relationship, meaning, you got whatever issues going on in your relationship. I want to challenge you. I want to encourage you not to think about or talk about, oh, what I don't have and this, that, and the third, but take it a step further and say, you know what? I will be, if you're unmarried, say, I will be married and I will have a happy, successful, whatever. And me and my spouse will, and see, again, this even works if you are married, me and my spouse will communicate and we will communicate effectively. We will, build a relationship on communication and trust. That you've got to begin to speak those things. Speak those things into existence. Begin to speak the things that are not as though they were, right? And the whole point and the whole purpose of that is, first, it starts within your mind. I've shared with you on last week about, how you've got to change your mind, right? And I'm going to deal some more with your thoughts and your mind, but I want us to look at a couple of passages of scriptures. All right, I want us to look at first. Let us go to James. Right, let's go to James. And as you go to James, we'll start with chapter. I believe it's in chapter number 1. Um, No, I'm sorry. It's chapter number 3, I believe it is. All right. And so I want to encourage you to make sure, again, that you write these down, go back and study them and read them for yourself. But when you get to James chapter 3 and you begin to read in James chapter 3, what you begin to see and hear and understand is that James is talking about the tongue. And as James is talking about the tongue, he tells us how important the tongue is. He talks about how even a ship is turned by such a small rudder, right? He talks about how even by, like, we can control horses and other animals by putting a bit in their mouth. Right, and he tries to teach us that our mouth is one of our most powerful weapons. All right. And I want to encourage you. All right. I want to encourage you that you've got to learn how to, we have to learn how to control and deal with the words of our mouth more intentionally. There you go. That's how I want to say that. You've got to learn how to deal with and how to control the words of your mouth more intentionally. We can no longer allow idle words to come out of our mouth. We no longer can say, oh, I'm so stupid. No, you can't do that to yourself anymore because I must be losing my mind. No, you can't say that anymore because, see, you have to begin to recognize and realize that as you begin to speak these things and you speak it and you say it long enough, that's why I want to encourage you not to let other people even to speak things negatively over you. When people say stuff negatively over me, I say, I cancel and delete that. I Nope, I cancel them words. I send them back to the pits of hell. If it ain't what and as like I said, sometimes I don't do it in front of folks. I do it in some front of some folks. If they saying something negative that I just outright don't receive, I can't. But if they saying something and I know they don't understand what it is they're saying, they don't understand, I'll just be like to myself, I'll say, I cancel and delete that. I send that back to the pits of hell. And I may go into later and tell them, I say it to myself, right? Say that, but then I may go back in and tell them, like, listen, what you said there, I don't agree with that. I don't accept that, and I'll explain to them why they shouldn't just say, all that kind of stuff. I'll do that from time to time. Um, and so I just want to encourage you. I want to encourage you, right? You've got to continue to watch the words that you speak. Your mouth, that mouth, that tongue of ours, it is so um, important. It is so it's a big deal. And I know some folks will be like, well, I've been speaking all kinds of stuff, and look at where it's gotten you. I mean, seriously, look at where it's gotten you. I want to encourage you, and I know I keep saying that, but it's because it is the truth. We have to change our speech. We have to change our speech. I'm telling you, the more you speak something, the more it becomes your reality. So then, when you begin to change the way you talk and you stop spitting and spouting negativity all the time, I said this the other day. Matter of fact, let me just read the word of God for you. And I'm gonna share my thought with you here in just a second. It says, "My brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able able also to bridle the whole body." So what Paul's saying is like, all right, for preachers, teachers, all of us, we've got to be doubly careful. We've got to be even more careful with the words of our mouth, right? We've got to be so careful as preachers, teachers. That's why when I get up, on this radio, I'm so mindful of what it is that I'm saying. And I'm even when I'm not in the radio, when I'm in a pulpit, when I'm around, I'm conscious. I'm conscious of the words that I'm saying. I'm conscious of the words that I'm putting out there. And sometimes, I listen, there's one person. There's one and a half people. I'll say it that way, but one person for sure. And then it may be two, but I'll say one person for sure who knows that when it comes to my thoughts, I guard my thoughts so very carefully. I don't say what I'm thinking all the time because I promise you, if I say what I'm thinking, I heard my wife reminded me of what Bishop Jake said. If people really knew the thoughts in your mind, if I said everything that came to my mind, I wouldn't have any friends. I wouldn't have this radio show. Y'all wouldn't call me minister, preacher, pastor, none of that, right? And if we're being honest, it's the same for many of us, right? But there's one person who every now and then she gets to hear some of my thoughts, and I tell her, Man, this is what I was thinking. This was what I was thinking about saying." And it just it she is, I think, one of the few people, one of the only people. Now, my best man, every now and then he hears some of my unfiltered thoughts, but I have to keep, and I want to encourage you. See, that's what I'm sorry, not Paul, James is talking about here in his letter, or in his epistle, or if you will, right? He's talking about that he's like, we've got to learn how to control our tongue. And I recognize and realize that before it comes out of my mouth, it starts as a thought. And I hear the thought. I hear it every time I hear it. And then you know what I do? I say, okay, can't say that. No, no. And I cancel it, I reject it, I delete it, I put it out, it's gone. Right? It goes into, if you familiar with computers and technology, it goes into the recycle bin, right? Into the trash bin. And I say, all right, boom, we're gonna throw that one in the trash bin. We're gonna try again, you know. And by the time I go through a cycle or two of that, I have the right thing to say. But the first one generally sometimes is not the right one. And what the writer James is telling us, he says, listen, for we all stumble in many things. And if anyone does not stumble in word, he is perfect. So which one of us out here doesn't say the right thing? Says the right thing all the time. Then it goes on, verse number 3. Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn their whole body. Look also at ships, although they are large, and are driven by fierce winds, they are turned by a very small rudder, wherever the pilot desires. Even so, listen to this. Even so, The tongue is a little member and boasts great things. I was going to say this earlier and I'll say it now. I believe that the reason why I'm able to continuously say to this day that I have never had a bad day in my life. I've had some days that were better than others, but I just can't say I've had a bad day in my life. Well, what about the what about the day you found your dad dead in his home? You know what? That was not one of my greatest days, but I still consider it to be a good day because at least I found him. He had been there for at least about, the coroner told me, about 2 weeks, before then. So I just thank God that even though it wasn't the greatest day, me finding my dad, I thank God, number one, I didn't have to actually see him in that state. And number two, I thank God that I was there to be able to find him, to be able to call, the sheriff's department, and for them to go ahead and go into the house and to find him, and that, you know what I mean? I thank God. One of my sisters was way in Atlanta. The other one was way in Italy. Neither one of them were gonna find him anytime soon. So I just, it wasn't a great day, but I thank God for that day. Why do you say? Why am I bringing that up? I continuously say, I intentionally say, I've never had a bad day. And I continue to not have bad days. I have days that are not as good as others. Because, see, first, I recognize and I realize it's about perception. It is about my thought. It is about how I perceive and look at the day. And we're going to talk about the power in your perception coming up in coming days. We're going to talk about the power of how you see things, view things up in coming days. However, I do also want to take time to tell you that it's also, I believe, excuse me, because of the way that I talk, right? The way that if I talk about it and frame it in a negative sense, it will become negative for me. But I can't even talk about that day in a negative sense. Listen. Let me tell you about the goodness of God. The goodness of God is that when they came out of that house, they being the sheriff's department, when they came out of that house and they confirmed that he was dead, I had my sister on the phone, right, with me, my sister in Atlanta. I broke down for a moment. I broke down for a moment, crying into my wife's arms, right? And it's like instantly, let me tell you about the goodness of God. Instantly, it's like I got a gut check. And all of a sudden, instead of breaking down crying, something rose up in me. And I heard my dad's voice say, just take care of business, son. Just take care of business. And what I rose up, I said, okay, yeah, yeah, Chris, and I got on the phone and I told her, yeah, they found him, this, that, and the other, and I'm gonna do this. And I started taking care of business. You say, well, what does that have to do with anything? What does that matter? Listen, it matters in that God is able to, and when I look at that day, I see so many positives. I see so many great things. I see how God, and that's how you've got to begin to speak good even in bad situations. You've got to encourage yourself even in times when you don't feel like it. When you don't, you know what I'm saying? You've got to lift. You've got to do it because there is power in your words. We're going to stay in James for a few days, right? We're going to stay in James for a few days, but I want to encourage you. I say a few days, probably we'll pick it up on Wednesday because tomorrow's will take me back Tuesday. We'll probably deal with it a little bit more on Thursday. I'll take us to some other scriptures on Thursday, and then we'll, close out on Friday dealing with the mouth. But I want to encourage you, the words that you speak are so very important. So, like, as much as possible, try to replace negative talk in your life. Try to replace negative thoughts in your life because it all starts with your thoughts. We talked about thoughts for about a week or so, maybe even a little more than that. And change your thinking and change your speaking. When there's a negative situation, find the positive in it. I have said since I was young and in high school, I am the prime optimist. You know what I mean? The play on it is that Transformers has Optimus Prime, but I am the Prime Optimus. I am an optimistic person. If you want to find the good in a bad situation, come talk to me. I'll help you see it. I'll help you find it. It's a part of, I can't help it. It's who I am. It's what I do, and I'm not trying to change. And I want that same thing for you, that when negativity rises, you're able to say, man, you know what? That's true, but God still kept me. God still delivered me. God still made a way. That's what I desire for you. And that's why we're going through the power series, is because I want you to know that you have power beyond what you realize, beyond what you may recognize, beyond, right? And there's power in all these different places, power in all these different areas. You just have to tap into it. You've got to tap into it, okay? But it starts with your thoughts, and then it moves into your mouth. Then we're going to talk about your actions and the power of your actions later on. But we're in the Power series, all right? And I want you to keep it locked. You're tuned in to 93.5 KPPM. And somebody said, well, what does this have to do with vision? You said all this year you'd be dealing with vision. All right. Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to close out this way. As we deal with the vision series, one of the parts of the vision is a vision for a better, healthier you, right? For a better you and a healthier you. We're still going to be dealing with the healthier you, but I want to deal with the better version, the better, best version of yourself. All right. And the best way for me to do that is to encourage you through these things, through the words of your mouth, the thoughts of your mind, and then even your actions. Keep it locked. You're tuned in to I Am Encouraged Radio right here on 93.5 KPPM, your community minded station. Now, let's go ahead and get into this next song. It's by KCJ, and it's simply entitled I'm Yours. But let me also say this, friends, it is about that time for me to go ahead and get out of here. I've got to make way for Redeeming the Time radio broadcast brought to you by Redemption Tabernacle and Pastor Kenneth A. Goins. Friends, just know that I love you. I thank God for you. Know that I am praying for you. And so I want you to pray for somebody else, because as we pray, I know that God can and God will change things. You be blessed, friends. I'll see you tomorrow.